In this video we will explore Python for the first time. We will start working in Jupyter Notebook. I also show you how to achieve the same using the Spyder IDE. And at the end of this video I will talk about what's the best IDE or maybe text editor to use for data science. So I open Jupyter and it opens in your browser. In my case I use Firefox, so depending on your main browser it will open there. So how to start a new Python script? We just go to New. I click on Python 3 and that should open up a new one, and here we are, we have now a new script. If you want to save it somewhere, you can just do a save as, and this will go straight into your working directory. You provide a set of instructions for the machine to execute. You have to be precise and you have to anticipate problems. Yeah, so you have to make sure that your code also runs even if certain conditions are not fulfilled. Let's start with assignment. I just use a letter which is a variable, and I just assign a value of 10. And then I do another one where I assign the value of a name, for instance. Note in the second case I use single quotation marks, which indicates a string in Python. The same is possible with double quotation marks, but you have to be consistent. Good, so after we have done this, we can now start running it. You just go up there and you can run it. Yeah, nothing really happens. It doesn't seem to do anything. Now to see the output, we have to use the print function. Yeah, so we can do a print A, and we can also do here a print B. And that should get us started. So if we run this, it would now show us the output. So A is 10 and B is ball. So we would assign the value 10 to an object, we call it A, and we assign a string, so text, to the object B. So if you want to explore the type of the variable or the object, you just use the type function. So I do another print function, I use the type function, and in there I put A, and I run this. So all these objects are assigned a certain type. And what you note in Python, which is very different from many other languages, it is what is called dynamically typed, which means that I can change the type just by reassigning it. And you don't have to specify the type before you assign a certain value. But you have to get used to it. Okay, so what you can see here is we have an integer and B is a string. Okay, this is what you would expect. Let's try something else. Let's reassign A, and I just take 7 divided by 8. Now that is no longer an integer, so we should expect something else. And indeed we get now a float, or floating point. So what happened here is you reassign the value. You also note a change of type. So there is no protection for changing types. Now this is good and bad. Yeah, it makes it quite dynamic. So this is what we call this dynamically typed, which is great. But also there is a downside, because quite often you don't quite know what's happening when you use certain functions. In particular, if the functions are written by other people, you have to always check carefully what's the return value. We will see this when we go deeper into functions. Now another interesting thing about assignment is the following. I could do, for instance, now B. I can, for instance, write B is equal to B plus 3. Yeah. So what is the expected outcome in this case? If I do a print B, what do you expect? Now what happens here is the following. You reassign B to something new. And what you do is you take the current value of B on the right hand side, which is 2, and you add 3 to it. So the outcome should be 5 in this case. Python, without doing further installations of libraries, does not permit the use of symbolic calculations. For instance, you cannot write b is equal to x plus x to the power of, which is written as 2 asterisks 2. You get now an error. Yeah, so you get a name error because x is not defined. It wouldn't know what x is. Yeah, so if you want to do this assignment, which actually is a function, you have to do this differently, and we will explore this, of course, in this course in more detail. The nice thing about Jupyter is it gives you the output straight away. Yeah, so anything that you type, you can execute, and inside your Jupyter script, you see the output. So that is quite nice. This is why many people in data science like it. However, some people don't like this mixing of code and output. Yeah? And I'm one of these people. I quite like to have it separate. So for me, I tend to prefer working in Spyder. So that's Spyder. It looks very different. I just add a few comments here. I just call this the first session, and author I just put in data nerd, so that's me. Here we go, and now I just copy paste. These 3 quotation marks are called docstring. Yeah, they can be used to make comments over more than one line. If you just want to have a one-line comment, you just use the hashtag. And what you note is at the moment nothing would happen. Yeah? So you just copy paste and you don't see any output initially. You also note, which is quite nice, you get here already a warning. Yeah? Because we already know the last line wouldn't execute. Undefined name X. Yeah? So we can comment the last line out. Yeah? We can just do this. We can just mark it, use Control 1. And this would comment out the last line. Yeah, very useful for coding to comment out some code, in particular if it's causing obviously some problems. So now to see actually what's going on, I run the code up here, or I hit the F5 key. I just run it now, and it's executing it. Yeah, and of course you get your output, but the output is separate in this output window, which actually is, that's your terminal basically. The variable explorer gives you the name of the variables, so the different objects, and also the type, the size, and we will see this later when we look at more complex objects, and the value. So that is very, very useful. So if you, for instance, do another value further down below here, where you want to assign a string. Now I use double quotation mark. I just use data nerd. Yeah. Then I can run this, and you see without using a print function, I see that C is a string. It has size 1. It's just one element, is one string, and the value is data nerd. Yeah. So that is kind of easy and nice. You don't need to have print functions in this case. So honestly, when it comes to what's the best thing to do for data science, the honest answer is it really depends on what you prefer. So if you like to have an interactive script where the output pops up in between your code, great, use Jupyter. If you like to have it separate, use Spyder. If you also want to incorporate code written in different languages, both of these solutions are not the ones you want to have. In this case, it would make sense to either go into VS Code, which I use quite heavily, or you could use a text editor such as Sublime Text, which is honestly my favorite. When I work across various scripts in particular, I certainly prefer that. Good, so that was our first session in Python. I see you in the next one.